I was called the help by my father-in-law because I work as a caregiver. Not real wife material, he told my husband. But at least she's useful. No one defended me. Not even my husband. I cooked dinner anyway, smiled through the insults, and took care of his ailing mother when no one else would. The day he collapsed, I was the one who called 911. And the day he needed a kidney, I quietly checked no on the donor form and never looked back. My name is Rebecca. I'm 36, and I work as a home caregiver. It's not glamorous. It's not the kind of job you brag about at dinner parties. But it's honest work. I clean people, feed them, change them when they can't go to the bathroom by themselves. Sometimes I hold their hands when they cry. Sometimes I hold their hands when they die. That's what I do. I met Aaron at a wedding in Raleigh. He was one of the groomsmen. I was just there to help coordinate a wheelchair-bound aunt for a client I worked with. We started talking over those dry wedding cupcakes. He was shy but sweet. An engineer. Smart, polite. A little nerdy, in a quiet way. I didn't think it would turn into anything, but he called me the next day. We were married 2 years later. Now, here's where it starts going wrong. Aaron's family came from money. Not millionaire money, but old, snooty, multi-generational wealth that no one talked about directly, but it oozed out of everything they did. His dad, George, had never worked a day in his life. His business experience was managing family real estate. He walked like he owned the air around him. His mother, Joan, wore silk robes and looked like she was permanently auditioning for a wine commercial. When I met them, I was wearing my best dress from Kohl's. George looked me up and down like he was smelling something sour. "What do you do?" he asked. "I'm a caregiver," I said. In-home support, mostly for elderly or disabled clients. His mouth twisted like he'd just eaten a lemon. "Oh," he said. "So, you're the help." He actually said it. Those exact words. I laughed. Thought maybe he was joking. He wasn't. Aaron stood there and rubbed my back like that was going to fix it. That was my first real introduction to George. The first time I had dinner with them, George called me not real wife material. It was a Sunday, and I had spent 4 hours cooking. Because they insisted I make the meal since you're a caregiver, cooking's kind of your thing, right? I made roasted chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, green beans, and apple pie from scratch. George took one bite and said, "Well, you can cook. At least you're useful." Then he turned to Aaron and said, "But come on, son. A woman who changes diapers for a living? What is this, a charity case?" Joan laughed behind her wine glass. Aaron didn't say a thing. That silence hit me harder than the insult. Still, I kept showing up, kept making meals, kept smiling through gritted teeth. I'd convinced myself that Aaron was just stuck between us, that he didn't want to make things worse, that he loved me. Then Joan started getting sick. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's. It came on fast. She went from sipping Chardonnay and judging everyone in town to trembling hands and stuttering speech within a year. George refused to hire a nurse. "I'm not turning my house into a damn hospital," he said. "Besides, we have Rebecca." Just like that, I was volunteered. Aaron just looked at me and said, "Would you mind, babe? Just until she's stable?" Of course, I said yes. I didn't do it for George. I did it because Joan was scared. And I know what fear looks like when someone realizes their own body is turning on them. 3 days a week, I went over. I changed Joan's clothes. I cleaned her sheets when she wet herself. I cut her food into tiny bites so she wouldn't choke. I massaged her legs to stop the cramps. I helped her walk so she wouldn't fall. George sat in the den the whole time, watching TV. Not once did he say thank you. Then came the night everything inside me snapped. We were having another Sunday dinner. I had cooked pork chops with apples, baked mac and cheese, and roasted carrots. I set everything on the table, served their plates. I sat down, poured myself a glass of water. George took a bite, then looked at me. "You know," he said, "you really should wear a uniform. You'd look more professional." Joan giggled. Aaron looked down at his plate and kept chewing. That was it. I felt something break inside me. I didn't cry.
I didn't yell.
I just stared at George while he shoveled food into his mouth. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. 3 weeks later, George collapsed in the bathroom. It was me who found him. I was upstairs changing Joan's sheets when I heard a thud. I ran down and saw him on the floor, gasping like a fish. He had soiled himself. His face was gray. He looked terrified. I started CPR while yelling at Aaron to call 911. Aaron stood frozen. He actually froze. I had to scream at him again before he moved. George survived.
Barely.
His kidneys were failing. The doctors said he'd need to start dialysis immediately. But long-term, he'd need a transplant. Joan wasn't a match. Aaron was close but disqualified due to a health issue.
So they checked me.
I wasn't related, but I was compatible. They asked me to fill out a donor form. No one pressured me directly. They just left it on the kitchen counter. Aaron said, "They're just seeing who's a match. No pressure." But I knew what they were hoping. I read the form carefully. Every word. Then I checked the box that said no. I sealed the envelope and mailed it myself. I never told anyone. Aaron never asked. George stayed on dialysis. His condition got worse. He aged 10 years in a matter of months. His hands shook. His face sunk in. He started forgetting things. Meanwhile, I still went over. Still took care of Joan. Her tremors got worse. Sometimes she forgot who I was. Sometimes she cried in my arms. And sometimes, when the meds wore off, she'd look at me and whisper, "I'm sorry." I never asked what for. I didn't need to. One day, George asked me why I still showed up if I hated him so much. He was lying on the couch, too weak to sit up. I had just brought Joan some tea and was getting ready to leave. I turned to him and said, "Because she needs me." He blinked, confused. Then I added, "And I don't abandon the people I care about."
He didn't respond.
Just looked at me with this empty stare. Aaron's been quiet lately. I think he suspects. Maybe he overheard a nurse mention donor status. Maybe he finally grew a spine and looked into it himself. One day he'll ask me,
Point blank.
and when he does, I'll look him right in the eye and tell him the truth. About 2 weeks after George asked me why I still came around, something strange happened. I was folding towels upstairs after helping Joan with her sponge bath. The bedroom was quiet except for the soft sound of her breathing. Then I heard voices downstairs, low, sharp, urgent. It was Aaron and George. "You need to talk to her," George hissed. "She's hiding something." "What do you want me to say?" Aaron sounded nervous. "You think she just said no to the kidney and kept it from me?" There was a pause. Then George said something I'll never forget. "She's punishing us. You included." That hit me
Hard.
not because it wasn't true, but because it was the first time George ever admitted out loud that they deserved punishment. I sat there behind the half-closed bedroom door, heart pounding, towels in my lap, listening to the two of them argue about my body, my organ, like it was a gift I was too selfish to give. That night, Aaron brought it up. We were sitting on the couch. He cleared his throat like a kid about to confess to breaking something. "I talked to the transplant coordinator," he said. "They said you were a match. But they said you declined." I looked at him. Didn't blink. I did. He waited, like I was going to explain. When I didn't, he rubbed his face and said, "Why? He's my father." I nodded. "And I'm your wife. Where was your voice when he called me the help? When he said I wasn't real wife material? When he laughed while I cooked and cleaned for him like a damn maid? That's not the same. Isn't it?" He didn't answer. A few days later, George stopped speaking to me completely. Didn't say hello. Didn't say thank you. He acted like I wasn't there. Fine by me. But then Joan got worse. Much worse. She fell one night while trying to go to the bathroom alone. She cracked 2 ribs. They rushed her to the hospital. The doctor said the Parkinson's had progressed more than they thought. When she came home, she needed round-the-clock care. That meant someone had to move in. Guess who volunteered? Not Aaron. Not George.
Me.
I moved into their guest room with nothing but a duffel bag and my medical supplies. Every night I stayed up setting alarms for medication. Every morning I helped her sit up and brush her teeth. George barely spoke. Aaron visited sometimes, but not much. Said work was too crazy. One morning, around 4 a.m., Joan grabbed my wrist while I was adjusting her bed. "I know," she whispered. Her lips were dry and cracked. Her voice barely came out. "Know what?" "That you didn't give him the kidney." I didn't say anything, just looked at her. She squeezed my hand. "You were right." Then she closed her eyes and went back to sleep. A few weeks after that, everything changed. Aaron told me he was going out of town for work.
3 days in Charlotte, he said.
Business trip. Left on a Wednesday. That Friday, I ran to the pharmacy to pick up Joan's new meds. When I came back, her front door was unlocked. And George was on the floor.
Collapsed again.
He had tried to make it to the bathroom by himself. He never made it. And this time he was alone. Because the person who was supposed to be there, me, was running his wife's errands. The ambulance came. They worked on him in the driveway for 20 minutes before taking him away. I followed, sat in the ER, waited. The doctor came out, eyes tired. "He's stable, but he's not bouncing back like last time." I nodded. Then my phone buzzed. It was a picture. Aaron, smiling in a hotel bar, arm around a woman I didn't know. The caption read, "Spotted in Charlotte." It came from a blocked number. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I stood up, walked to the nurse's station, and asked them to update George's emergency contact. I gave them Aaron's number. Then I walked out of the hospital without saying a word. I didn't go back to the hospital. I didn't go back to the house either. Not right away. I drove to my sister's apartment on the edge of town, sat in her parking lot for almost an hour, and finally walked in with nothing but my purse. She didn't ask questions. Just made coffee and let me cry into it. I stayed there for 2 days. In that time, Aaron didn't call, didn't text, but he did show up on the third night. Banged on my sister's door at 11 p.m. until her neighbor threatened to call the cops. I opened the door just enough to look at him. His face was flushed, his eyes wild. "You left my father alone," he shouted. "He almost died." "I was picking up your mother's medication," I said calmly, "while you were in a hotel room with some woman." He didn't deny it, just stared at me like he didn't recognize me.
"This isn't you," he said.
And that made me laugh.
"This is exactly me.
You just never saw it. Because you never looked." I closed the door. A week later, I went back to the house. Not to move back in, just to check on Joan. George was home from the hospital, weaker than ever, confined to a recliner with a walker beside him. When I walked in, he looked up. Pale, sunken eyes. Tubes in his nose. He didn't say a word. Joan was in bed, dozing. I checked her vitals, gave her meds, helped her drink some juice. I didn't speak to George the entire time. As I turned to leave, he muttered, "You're going to regret this." I stopped. "Maybe," I said, "but at least I'll still be alive." Aaron tried texting again. Apologies. Promises. Half-hearted explanations. I was drunk. I didn't sleep with her. It didn't mean anything. I never answered. Then something happened I didn't expect. Joan called me. On her own. Her voice was soft and slow, but clear. "Rebecca," she said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If I go before him, will you still come around? I don't want to die alone." That hit me harder than anything else ever had. Because in that moment, I realized I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't forgive her. Not entirely. But I saw her clearly now, not as George's puppet, not as the wine-sipping snob, but as a woman afraid to disappear. "I'll be there," I said. And I meant it. That night, my lawyer friend helped me draw up separation papers. No divorce yet. Just legal space. I had them delivered to Aaron's office the next morning.
He didn't respond.
But a week later, I found out from a mutual friend that he'd moved into one of the apartments above his tech company. Alone. Joan kept calling me once or twice a week. Her voice was getting worse. She slurred more, forgot things. But she always remembered to say thank you. Every time. Then one morning I got a call from the home health nurse. Joan had stopped responding. Her breathing was shallow. Her pulse fading.
I rushed over.
She was still there, barely.
I sat beside her.
Held her hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know, I said. She died an hour later. Peacefully. With me sitting beside her. George was in the other room. He didn't come in. Didn't even ask if she was gone. Just turned the TV louder. At the funeral, Aaron showed up in a wrinkled suit. He tried to sit next to me. I got up and moved. He didn't follow. George didn't speak. Didn't cry. Just sat in a wheelchair and stared ahead, like he was trying to outlive her out of spite. After the service, I went home. To my own apartment. Where no one called me the help. Where no one laughed at my work. Where no one expected me to save them anymore. After Joan's funeral, things moved quickly. George declined fast without her. It was like his body gave up the moment she left. His appetite disappeared. His legs stopped working. He cursed at the nurses, refused his medication, even spit on one of them when they tried to help him out of bed. They moved him to a care facility on the edge of town, one that didn't allow pets, didn't have fancy furniture, didn't come with a private chef. The kind of place I'd worked in before. The kind of place George would have called a holding pen for poor people. I didn't visit. Not once. Aaron texted me about it. Said he felt guilty. Said George had no one left. I'm not surprised, I replied. Then I blocked his number. I wish I could say that was enough for me. That walking away gave me peace. But it didn't. Because I kept thinking about the way Aaron just stood there while they all tore me down. About the way he let his father insult me, about how he turned his back when I needed a partner. How he cheated, and then came crawling like I was supposed to still care. He was still working at that company he co-founded. Still driving the same Tesla. Still showing up to meetings like he hadn't blown up our life. So, I did something petty. And maybe a little cruel. I wrote an email to his company's board of directors. Subject line: Co-founder's inappropriate conduct towards spouse during time of medical crisis. Inside was everything. The affair. The fact that I was his wife and caregiver for his parents while he ran off to Charlotte with another woman. The fact that I had documents showing he left his father alone during a medical emergency. I attached a timeline. Photos. Screenshots. A copy of the separation papers with dates. I didn't expect anything to come from it. But a week later, I heard through the same mutual friend, Aaron was taking a leave of absence. Board mandated. The woman he'd been seeing?
Gone.
Told people he was too cold. I didn't feel better right away. Revenge isn't a warm thing. It doesn't hug you or hold you at night. It just sits there, quiet, cold, and final. But it gave me space. A few months passed. I started a new job with a hospice group in Asheville. The work is hard, but the people are kind. They don't care where I went to school.
They don't call me the help.
They see what I do as real. Because it is. Aaron emailed me once. Said he'd been thinking a lot. That he was in therapy now. That he wanted to rebuild things. I deleted it. No response. George died 6 months after Joan. Alone. A nurse called me when it happened. Said I was still listed as next of kin. I paused. Then I said, I'm not. She understood. Hung up without asking anything else. I never told anyone he needed a kidney. Never told anyone that I was a match. Never told anyone that I had the power to save him and chose not to. That was mine to keep. And I did. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's not messy or cruel or wild. Sometimes it's just a quiet no written in black ink on a white form. Sometimes it's walking away when they finally realize they need you. And choosing not to look back.